All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakah Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect, the Bayat Dawadah, the house of David. All right, so we're just going to jump right into the scriptures, right? And it says, let's read Matthew, the 24th chapter, and the 38th verse first, right? It says, for as in the days that were, let's matter of fact, let's do verse 37. It says, but as the days of Noah were, right? Noah, it says, were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And everything that's going on, right, in this society, we're seeing it, man. We're seeing it happening to the T, right? And when we're seeing all these things go on, we're seeing that we're knowing that we're living in the time of Yahushai's return. You see? It says, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah, right, or Noah entered into the ark and knew not until the flood came. What was the first flood? The earth was drowned out by water. You see? But this one is going. Let's go here real quick. All right, let's go to 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, right? And let's go right here. Let's go to the 4th verse. Matter of fact, we'll read the 3rd verse. You see the subhead, the coming day of the Lord. It says, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, and there's many of them. You see, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was being overflowed with water perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire. Right, and in this world, this earth, this world right here, this current world that we're living in, right, this current age of rulership of who so-called, or the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, right, is reserved unto fire. Right, the revitalized Roman Empire. You see. And it's going to be destroyed by ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I can't forget the concentrated fire of the chariots as well. You see? And all things are going on right in these times of Yahushai's coming, man. Now, I'm not giving you a date or time or anything of that nature because I don't know, right? But all I'm doing is measuring the time diligently in itself, right? So let's read this here. It says, and the same word is kept in the store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Right? Okay. Now let me get 2nd Ezra real quick, the 9th chapter. Like I told you, I'm measuring the time diligently in itself. And I'm seeing all these things happen. 2nd Ezra 9:1, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time when the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people, and now we're seeing a lot of uproars of the people. We're hearing about earthquakes. You see? A lot of earthquakes been going on, man. Okay? It says, in uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world have a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, even so the times also the highest have plain beginnings and wonder and powerful works and endings and effects and signs. Okay, so let's go back into here. Right? Let's go back to that Matthew. Right? Matthew, the 24th chapter. Right? And let's go right here. Let's go right down to here, Matthew. And Matthew, right? it says this, and except in Matthew 24 and 22, it says, and except those days should be shortened, there shall be no flesh, there shall no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. You see? Okay? Because all these things are going on, man. All these things are happening. Right? So let's go up here. Right? In verse number 6. Let's read that, and the point is in 7. Right? It says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. And we're hearing a lot of wars and rumors of wars. There's things going on during these times. All right? This is how you know the scriptures are faithful and true. It's how you know Yahweh Shem Yahushua is faithful and true. It says, see that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation. That's race. That's your class wars, your civil wars, right? It says, and kingdom against kingdom, right? That's all these kings going against these kings, right? And their nations, right? It says, and there should be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows, right? All these are the beginning of sorrows, man. Okay? So we just wanted to bring that out real quick. But we're going to jump into the...
First Alert meteorologist Katie Bower is tracking the latest activity down there. Katie.
Yeah, and thankfully much calmer conditions now than what we saw on Saturday, because on Saturday there were hundreds of earthquakes, noticeable earthquakes that were over 2.5. We really haven't been seeing much over 2.5 at this point. This is the last 24 hours. We'll call everything below 2.5 microquakes, and that's where we are still watching a couple of different areas. Now, primarily that Brawley area you can see as we zoom in south of the Salton Sea. There have been some lingering, very small quakes, but most of these here, the predominant amount of these have been below 2.0, so very small in nature, and certainly a far less greater amount than what we were seeing here just over the weekend. So good news here, John, is that there is improvement, and we're starting to see a little bit less shaking here to the south of us.
Thank you, Katie. As the shaking continues near Brawley, News Channel 3's Gavin Wynn continues team coverage live in studio, breaking down exactly what an earthquake swarm is and what's next in our very earthquake-prone region. Gavin.
John, that's right. As we just saw, hundreds of those quakes happening in that area over the weekend. It all started there with the strongest quakes registering at a magnitude 4.5 and 4.7. Tonight, we're hearing from the experts on what they're forecasting and if this swarm spells any bad news for the valley. Seismic activity south of the Salton Sea being referred to as an earthquake swarm.
In a swarm, there's no obvious main shock. It doesn't necessarily decay the way we expect an aftershock sequence to decay.
It has the attention of valley residents despite being dozens of miles away.
A little bit, yeah. It's concerning.
Are you ever worried about the San Andreas Fault? I mean, being right here.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. It could happen any day, you know, but I try not to think about that.
The infamous San Andreas Fault runs just north through the valley in those hills that you can see behind me, and it begins all the way down south near the Salton Sea. The swarm has been happening in between two different fault zones, the San Andreas as well as the Imperial Fault Zone, which is closer to the border with Mexico. And while not on either fault, activity in Brawley does present a concern that seismologists have heard before.
Whenever we see a swarm in this area, people want to raise the possibility that it could jump onto the San Andreas Fault and create a larger earthquake. Certainly that's within the realm of possibility.
The area that's shaking now is in the Brawley seismic zone, seen here on fault maps. Previous swarms have happened in the same spot, and researchers say there could be a connection between the two faults and this swarm-prone area. But the chances of a large earthquake stemming from this swarm?
The way that the swarm is decaying, we would think that any large future earthquakes due to this swarm are unlikely.
It's in an active geothermal area with fluids moving below the surface. That helps generate these small quakes.
When these fluids move, they create stress or they lubricate faults. Both things can be happening, and then we get a lot of small earthquakes being released. So it's sort of a part of a normal process in that area.
Normal as it might be, the message to residents is this.
These swarms get our attention. People can expect to continue feeling some small earthquake, but really the overall risk is something we have to live with all the time. People should remember to be prepared.
And News Channel 3's Shay Lawson did a whole piece on preparedness this past weekend. You can find that story on our website under the Earthquake Alert tab and get a refresher on the steps you should take before an earthquake. For now, I'm Gavin Nguyen, live in studio, News Channel 3.
This is Brawley, California. It says a large cluster of earthquakes centered in the Brawley area south of the Salton Sea continued to shake this week. Well over 350 earthquakes have rattled the area since the weekend, though many of them have been microquakes, typically under the multitude of 2.0. In just the past 24 hours, nearly 24 of these types of tumblers have been quietly rumbling under Brawley, as seen below. A few of the quakes, though, have been on a larger side. A multitude of 4.5 quake struck on Saturday night, with the multitude of 4.7 one just after midnight on Sunday. The United States Geological Survey provided an aftershock forecast after these two larger quakes found here. There is a difference between main shock and aftershock earthquakes and earthquake swarms. In a swarm, there is no obvious main shock. It doesn't necessarily decay the way we expect an aftershock sequence to decay, said an expert with the agency. It says the quakes so far have been centered in between two major fault lines, the infamous San Andreas Fault and the Imperial Fault Zone. The area is referred to as a Brawley seismic area on fault maps published by the California Department of Conservation. It says experts told the News Channel 3 that the swarm activity has been decaying since the swarm started over the weekend, and even though there are non-zero chance seismic area in the area could jump in the San Andreas Fault, the change remains low. The interesting thing about the swarm and many of the swarms in the Brawley area is that they actually go perpendicular to those two faults, so there may be almost more structure that might connect between the two faults, or really get to be on a complication between the two faults, revealed Andy Michael, a geophysicist with the U.S. Geological Survey, who has been tracking the latest swarm in Brawley. Whenever we see a swarm in the area, people want to raise the possibility that it could jump on the San Andreas Fault and create larger earthquake. Certainly, that's within the realm of possibility, he continued. But again, the way that the swarm is decaying, we would think that a large future earthquakes due to the swarm are unlikely. Experts believe that Brawley seismic zone is prone to these earthquake swarms due to the proximity to a lot of geothermal activity. Several volcanoes like Salton Butts, just a few kilometers to the north, are indicative of that. What we think causes the swarms, especially in the area like Brawley, where they have geothermal processes and they have geothermal energy being produced, fluids moving at depth, said Michael. When these fluids move, they create stress or they lubricate faults. Both things can be happening, and then we get a lot of smaller earthquakes being released. So it is sort of a part of a normal process in that area. Michael pointed to the series of the swarms that produced a multitude of a 5.4 earthquake in 2012, regardless of how normal these swarms are, though he said it is a good reminder on preparedness. Meanwhile, News Channel 3 previously reported on how local preparedness groups use the cluster of quakes as a reminder of the valley's residents to stay prepared. You can find that report by clicking here. These swarms get our attention, said Michael. People can expect to continue feeling some small earthquakes, but really the overall risk is something we have to live with all the time, so people should remember to be prepared. Hey, so with that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakah Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and others of great millstone and well. Peace and blessings and citations to the hopeful elect, the Bayath, Dawadah, the house of David, Kwam Yasha'Allah, Abba Babal. Repent ye, for the kingdom of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai is at hand. Shalom.